Morning all. I'd like to show you quite an attractive Capablanca game played in New York 1910. Capablanca's opponent was Charles Jaffe. So let's have a look. D4 from Kappa, and Charles Jaffe plays D5, Knight F3, Knight F6, E3, quite a modest move, blocking in the bishop, and Black plays C6. After C4 we have that dreaded Slav defense triangle, which is very, very popular today. How will this be broken down by Capablanca? This very, very solid position. Knight C3, Knight Bd7, Bishop D3, Bishop D6, both sides castle, and now Kappa plays E4. This kind of E4 break quite suddenly actually occurred in the World Championship match this year in 2013 in one of the decisive games that Magnus Carlsen beat Vichy Anand. Not exactly this position, but a quick E4. What does it actually do to the position? It gives white some pressure on the E file. That's one thing, changing the structure quite radically. If black is going to take on E4, and black did, so knight takes E4, knight takes, bishop takes, Knight F6. A bit of a tempo loss, you could argue, but the bishop sits very nicely on this diagonal, and this bishop's still hemmed in. White's about to put a lock and key on E5, trying to prevent E5 soon with rook E1. Charles played a weakening move here, perhaps not too necessary. He played H6. It might not be the most efficient way to try and defend the potential threats against his king coming up. We see now Capablanca playing B3, which might give black a full sense of security that the bishop's going to this diagonal, so the pressure on this diagonal is not that significant. B6, bishop B2, bishop B7, and here we see it, a move which wouldn't have been played perhaps if this bishop was still on C1. After Queen D3 we see this move which really weakens black's kingside even more. But there is a potential threat here of white playing D5 and bishop takes F6 for Queen H7. Let's have a quick look at this position. I believe that's like the major threat is D5 here for bishop takes F6. So black, how could actually black react adequately to this here? You know, for example, rook E8, perhaps D5. We can take, and if bishop takes F6 here, we've got an escape route for the king, like this, for example, and black's fine. But the way Jaffe played was actually in this position a little bit of a panic. He played G6. So quite a few weaknesses now exist around the king side. Rook A E1, and it looks as though there's an immediate, tactical pressure here on this pawn chain. And in fact, after Knight H5, it would seem black's holding by the skin of his teeth against rook takes E6 here. If rook takes E6, then Knight F4, and that defends G6. But maybe white could even play this, because tactically this isn't so clear after rook takes D6. Queen takes D6 and Queen E3, for example. White's still got very strong prospects here, and technically engines actually like white's position even here. But Capablanca doesn't have to play rook takes E6. He can cover that F4 square first to make rook takes E6 more effective. He plays bishop C1. The bishop's come back, protecting against Knight F4, hitting the pawn on H6. Black now played King G7, but alas now, this is really quite powerful. Rook takes E6. White's going to crash through on G6. If takes, Queen takes G6. Here, Queen H7 is mate. So that can't be taken after rook takes E6. Black played Knight F6. And here is where things get quite brutal. Capablanca plays Knight E5. And this is quite a nasty position with this knight here. If it's removed, this is probably the best move to take it. And if rook takes e5, white still has persistent pressure and can dominate the e-file pretty soon as well. But this diagonal in particular is just right for the bishop going back in d5 as well as other things. So we see black actually playing c5 here, and now there's a fantastic move which really blows away black's king side. Can you spot it? If I give you 10 seconds, you might want to pause the video. Okay, there's actually two very good moves, so some points for either of them. If you played knight takes f7, that is pretty good, crashing through to g6. Black's best might be bishop e4, but still white's better here. Just, you know, rook takes e4 is massively better, absolutely winning. But even stronger in this position, much stronger here, even stronger. Bishop takes h6 was played. And now Jaffe played king takes, and we see knight takes f7 check. So with check, it makes it even better. And here black resigned. He's been mated. If king h5, there's queen h3 mate. If rook takes f7, there's queen takes g6 mate. If king g7, again queen takes g6 mate. I think there's an instructive lesson here about not creating too many weaknesses around one's king. So this can be the devastating result. Capablanca really crashed through on the king side here in this dramatic game. Comments or questions on YouTube? Thanks very much.